So this is George.
Okay,
Um,
George.
I call him George because he's very curious,
Okay.
and
He does seem to be kind of flitting around. So how much
he's
does he
always
weigh?
moving.
How long is he and how big can he
Yeah,
get?
so he weighs now. He's probably about 13 pounds.
Okay, that's not
He's
too
eight
bad.
and a half feet long.
Wow,
Yeah, they're
that's
kind of like a
long.
skinnier bodied. Yeah, like that's the whole body there.
Wow.
And I'm like 6'5", so I'm
Okay.
bigger.
So you're a
So
short guy.
yeah, short guy. So if I hold him up, I can hold him a couple feet above my head.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
So do your
Yeah.
kids love George?
Yeah, so interesting story there. So I
So
had the same
welcome
kind
to
of.
this week's episode of Leadership Sound Bites with my very special guest, Tyson Knauf. I said that right?
Yeah, you did
Okay.
perfect.
I did have to ask, and I wrote it down phonetically, but I didn't look at what I wrote down phonetically.
I
Uh,
usually have to tell
so
everyone.
get ready for the list. Okay. No, I need to tell people because they're gonna think I'm just super smart and can pronounce it off. So here's Tyson, and you and I met. It was on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
I may have seen you may have liked, or there's a comment, or I saw a picture of you with a snake, and we'll get to that in a minute. I think you know what it was? It
Hmm.
was your freaking ghostwriter thing.
Yeah, I reached out to you about ghostwriting.
Yes, yes.
Thanks.
And I'm like, I've never met anyone with that title. So this is a great intro into who you are, Tyson.
Yeah.
Author, ghostwriter, into publishing, brand specialist. You do a lot of work on LinkedIn. And it's so funny because I think you just organically became that. Author, the book that's behind you, Turn Over the Rock. I freaking love the
Mhm.
story around all that
Yeah.
stuff and around animals. And you're a beekeeper. Okay. So it's this mush blend. And I know you had a
Mhm.
couple guests for us. I feel like I'm on the Johnny Carson show while someone's bringing
So,
different things, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I know you and I, when we chatted initially just on the intro call to find out different things, I mean, we didn't have a shortage of topics to talk about.
Mhm.
And I'm sure people learn that about you and how you came to be who you are today, which is kind of cool. And in the background, I thought for some reason you won that trophy, but you just posed with
Oh
it.
yeah, that one there. Yeah, yeah.
So
No,
welcome. And I know you have a quote and some other stuff. So it's good to chat with you.
yeah. Thanks, Michelle. No, I'm really excited to continue the conversation and share more about what it is. I do a few things, so
You
yeah.
do. You do. We
Mhm.
just truncated the list down, but you do.
Yeah.
So what's your quote? And it's from your grandfather?
Yeah, my grandpa Gunner. Yeah. Yeah, so
That
he
was his name.
pardon?
Was his first name Gunner?
Gunner. Yeah. So he actually
Okay.
named our son after him as well. Our son's name's Gunner.
I love that. I went to school with a Gunther. I went to school
Gun-
with a Gunther. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not many Gunners out there. I lived in Germany for a couple of years and came across one.
Yeah.
So um yeah, there's not as many. He was a truck driver. So he was a truck driver in northern Alberta and just kind of like he started as a farmer, wasn't really a farmer. His father-in-law was an avid farmer, but he never really took to it. And he was a truck driver and loved driving. He drove till he was in his late 80s. He lived into his 90s.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah, yeah. The day he couldn't drive anymore was a very sad day for him. That was part of his identity, I think.
Mhm.
And yeah, just before he passed away, my sister, she has a video of it actually. She asked Grandpa like, what's the thing? What's the thing you want to leave? Like, you want to leave behind in terms of what matters most. And he said, well, just
Yeah.
always remember the little guy. Like no matter how, because he had a lot of faith in all of us, his grandkids. Like he always saw us doing great things.
Hmm.
He says, I know you guys are gonna do great things, but just don't forget where you come from and who and the little guy and those people that struggle or whatever on that side. And so it was always kind of like a kind of an anchoring statement, I
Hmm.
guess, for us as his grandkids. And um, yeah, part of why I named Gunner is because of who he was. And he's my German grandpa, so that's where my last name comes from.
I
Uh,
love it.
yeah, so it worked out very
How's
well.
that? It's interesting when I hear that. It's the little guy is, and people can take it the wrong way. Uh,
Mhm.
but the reality of it is there is some, and it's the same way in freaking leadership when I think about it. There's a responsibility that we have for the care and feeding of the people on our team. right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of that too. And it doesn't mean you've got handouts or anything else like that, but as we develop in life and as we achieve different milestones, there's some level of how do you rise up or bring up other people who aspire to do or be what you're doing or where you're at. And I think that's part of it too, is it's not about achieving goals and then you look around and you've got all these dead bodies along the side of the road. It's about elevating the team and bringing everybody else along. That's what comes to mind for me. How has it
Mhm.
shown up for you and what you do?
Yeah, I kind of look at it as, I should put it on my book, was like, the under the kind of subheading to it is
Yeah.
discovering opportunity, finding grace, and getting clients. But the finding grace part was kind of where I think a lot of that came from, is like, realizing that everything that we have in life, yeah, we can construct some of it, but the majority of it is given to us in some way or another by someone else, or um, by opportunity, or by good fortune, right? Those things. And so, I call that, probably equates more to like grace in my mind, of,
Mhm.
and giving grace to people. Same thing in the work that we do. I've got staff that I work with. I have people we work for, and I don't know, like that statement from my grandpa is more of like, look out for people, but also remember where you came from.
Mhm.
Be grounded in who you are. Don't forget that. Like that was kind of the feeling that came across whenever and he said that. That was kind of his quote for a while. It wasn't just once. I remember him saying that to me
Yeah.
personally. So yeah, that's kind of what resounded from it.
It's interesting. I love it. I would love for you to go back because when you and I talked about um just who you are and what you do and the stories, because the whole beekeeper, I know you have snakes. And I know I think you've got a buddy of yours that was advising you on, how to stand out, right? And get people to have attention. And that was one of the things that was so funny. So it's a combo, right? Ghostwriter. Interesting, Tyson. I've never really met anyone who's a ghostwriter or come across. And then I went and checked out your profile on LinkedIn, and there's a freaking picture of you with a snake wrapped around, like on your
Mhm,
shoulders, like you would
mhm.
put like a scarf or something. And I'm like, this is somebody I want to get to know. I want to learn. And I knew nothing else about you, right?
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was so funny because I think a buddy of yours is the one
Mhm.
that said, yeah, do that.
Yeah, that was so Kent Gustafson. He's my partner in ghostwriting. He's written hundreds of books, and it actually, what got me started in it was him just asking that question of, what are he asked that, I hear him say that a lot to our clients too, is like, what's that weird thing about yourself that you just don't tell people that's really interesting? And for me, it was like, well, I've got pet snakes. And then I was just testing with that. And then when he was okay with that, I'm like, well, yeah, I keep bees and I have some pet tarantulas. And he was
Yeah.
just, yeah, he was the first person, in my professional sphere that was like, and I never really shared that in my professional. I always tried to keep these two realms separate, because I'm thinking, oh, your professional life and your passions may not always be something you want to broadcast, especially with snakes and spiders. But he was the first one to say, no, that's interesting. That's who you are.
Hmm.
That's something that makes, and it'll attract people that are interested in it, and it'll detract people that aren't, and that's fine.
Hmm.
But he was the first kind of one that helped me to understand that first lesson, authenticity, of what it means to just be who you are. Because all through my life, I knew I was a bit different than everyone in the room sometimes, and I always kind of saw that as like a negative thing. I remember getting like I used to work in banking, and I
Oh,
worked
okay.
in a commercial role, and I just got promoted to brand bank manager, and I was
Hmm.
leaving that office, and all the people before I left, they gave me this card, going away card, and it had all these cowboys sitting on horseback, and there's one cowboy wearing like a flamingo, like a full size flamingo hat, and it said something along the lines like, there's one in every group, and we're so
Yeah.
glad to have you in ours. And I remember at first kind of like, do I take offense that I'm the weird one?
Oh.
but then as I thought about it, I realized like that was a compliment. It was a deep compliment,
Hmm.
actually, that I was authentically me. I wasn't trying to be generic. I wasn't trying to blend in. And that's the message you kind of see come up more and more now in the corporate world, is like, be
Mhm.
who you are. Don't try and conform to or try and be the same as everyone else. The more authentic you are, the more attractive it is to others, kind of thing. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's so funny you say that, and it's about making connections with people.
Mhm.
And if we show up and we leave a chunk of who we are, right? And it doesn't mean that you've got to like walk into the room with a snake draped around you or anything else, but it
Mhm.
means that you're not fearful that people are going to discover that part of you. And I
Mhm.
think that's the aspect of it, right? It's like, okay, I'm all me and I can still be quirky and I'm going to talk about snakes and spiders and not be afraid that you're going to ostracize me because I'm
Yeah.
talking about snakes and spiders.
Yeah.
And then we
Totally.
make connections because people go, oh my God, I never would have thought that about you. No kidding. This is what I do. And so you create the space that people can step in and start sharing the other aspects of themselves. I
Yeah,
think
like
it's
that
cool.
vulnerable. Yeah, vulnerability. It kind of creates, I guess, an invitation to be vulnerable more.
Hmm.
That's where, um, yeah, I talked a bit about that in my book in terms of spiders. So I think I told you about this in an early call bit, but like when spiders grow, they have to shed their whole skin. And when they shed their skin, I was going to grab it and bring it, but they look like a spider. It's the hair and fangs,
Really?
everything gets shed all at the same time. Yeah.
No, they don't shed like we shed, like our
No, they shed
like
everything in one. It looks like a whole. I've got them on my wall, but it's like a whole. Looks like a whole spider. Like
wow,
we had my niece over, and she said, "Why do you have a dead spider in there?" I went, no, that's just its skin. And but when they do that, they
which
become
is
really.
kind of gross when you think about it.
It's
Right?
really gross.
But
Yeah,
we're not going to keep our dead skin. I'm
yeah,
like,
totally.
what's on the jar? Oh, it's a jar of my dead skin.
Yeah, totally. That'd be more like, what's the mannequin in the closet? Is what it
Yeah,
was. Yeah, yeah, totally.
my dead
Yeah,
skin. I glued it back together. It was all the
totally,
as I
totally.
exfoliate. I'm just repiecing me together.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
But
just
yeah,
gross.
they do it all at once, and
Okay.
but the interesting thing is they go on their back. I had this time lapse I did a while back of when they go on their back and they kind of sit there for a while, and all of a sudden they start to move, and the head plate at the back of their body pops off, and they kind of it's almost like a manhole just pops off, and they kind of slide out. And
What?
when they come out, yeah, they're all white, like their skin is white, their fangs are white, everything's super soft. Like if you feed a tarantula too close to their molt, their fangs can just break and stuff. So
Oh,
uh,
wow.
yeah, they're like that for a few days. And with the principle kind of I was talking about with it in the book was like, every time that we grow like drastically, there's a lot of vulnerability required in that. And
Mm-hmm.
so if we're not feeling vulnerable, then we're probably not growing. And
Mm.
and so it kind of just it was for me, it was a bit of a litmus test, realizing like, okay, if I'm feeling vulnerable right now, it's because I'm growing. It's not because there's something wrong or something wrong with
Mm-hmm.
me. It's because I'm growing, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all part of the process, right? So
What kind of feedback have you gotten on your book
mhm.
and some of this stuff?
um
Because these stories they're personal.
mhm.
And I know you connected them to animals, spiders, whatever. I don't know if there's a bee one in there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Okay, okay. But what kind of feedback have you gotten? Because it's a different approach
Yeah.
to,
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of it's been I didn't know that about you to start with,
yeah.
but I'm really excited that I got to know that of you. And also it kind of just, and I kind of say that with people often, is like the principles that I talk about in the book are principles that we're all aware of,
Hmm.
but it's the stories that kind of is the delivery method to really kind of taking it in, because we can know things but not know things. But
Hmm.
if we can kind of have a story to go with it, that becomes the way for us to be able to receive it and understand it a bit more in fuller detail.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the feedback I'm getting. It's like this, like great delivery method. Like
Yeah.
that's really what it was. Yeah.
No, what's the bee one? I'm
The B
curious.
one, yeah. So with
Because I've
bees,
got a visual of the beehive with all the stuff and the queen bee
yeah.
bed.
When
So
you
now
go,
I'm curious.
yeah. When I first started beekeeping, the first thing most beekeepers are afraid of is getting stung. And so you got all your gloves, you got your whole thing. And then in the book I was reading was Beekeeping for Dummies. That's what got me into beekeeping. But in there they're talking about, if you have your gloves off, then you can feel better. Like the gloves are thick, they're leather, almost like
Yeah.
work gloves. But if you have your gloves off, you can, when you're pulling the frame out, you can feel if there's a bee there. It'll kind of buzz. It won't sting you, and then you can let it move out of the way. You won't squish it. But if you have your gloves on, you can't feel that,
Yeah.
and so you can end up, squishing more bees. And every time you squish them, they give off a pheromone, and it alarms all the other ones to get upset.
Oh, danger,
Yeah.
danger.
And so if you don't have your gloves on, you can actually have a better experience with the bees, generally speaking, because you're going to be more gentle with you. And if you're gentle with your bees, they tend to be more gentle with you. And
Mm-hmm.
so the principle with the beekeeping is just learning to take your gloves off when it comes to, like, connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
Same with like with people, if you're going to run the risk of getting hurt or stung.
Mm-hmm.
And I get stung often, but I also built up a sting tolerance now. So I get stung at least once or twice. If I go through a hive and my hives and I haven't been stung that day, then that's a good day. um, and so you build up a sting tolerance, but also you build up, through that you're able to actually not hurt the bees. And it's similar with people. Like, yeah, you're gonna get hurt, but you're generally not gonna hurt the bee or people around you,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll end up getting hurt less in the end too, because you'll have more feeling into what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah.
Interesting. The stuff that comes to mind, there's so many lessons. Toyota production system. There's a visual, and there's a 2-day A3 thinking class that I taught Margie Hagney, my mentor, developed myself and a colleague. And in that, we show a visual of the mountain, the Toyota, the mountain and stuff. You've got which could be the leader on top or whoever's leading right now. And then you've got a couple other people down from the mountain attached by a rope. And the leader is face down, looking down, a very cryptic, rudimentary drawing from the 50s, right? And 50s or 60s. But it was one of those things that, in order to be an effective leader, and the leader's job is to develop themselves, develop their people to deliver results, right? Which is
Mhm.
all the stuff that you're talking about. Well, we can't, we're not in a position to actually develop people and meet people where they're at unless we actually can see where they're at. And
Mhm.
part of that seeing is feeling, right? Because if we go in armored up, gloves on, whatever it may be, we're not going to pick up on the nuances.
Mhm.
We're going to see, feel, whatever, what we expect to do. We're going to go in, boom, we're going to get the job done, and then we're back out again. But we're not really getting the job done. So,
Mhm.
part of our thing is to develop people is we do need to be sensitive to the humans around us. I mean, I have some leaders that I coach, they're like, I don't understand why this feeling stuff is part of it.
Mhm.
Because we're dealing with humans, right? So it's just part of, and not every leader has that skill set developed because they've got this line of business. It's just about getting the stuff done, right? And
Mhm.
it's great if you're working with a bunch of robots. But we're not. We're dealing with humans that want to know they add value, that want to feel appreciated, that want development, they have aspirations of their own. And if we go in totally gloved up,
Yeah.
we're going to miss that stuff. And we're going to miss the nuances of the guy who's got the flamingo hat on when everyone else is wearing cowboy hats.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to pay attention to it. And he may not feel comfortable wearing his flamingo hat.
Totally, totally. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, leaders we have that protective kind of, I don't know, almost persona, I guess maybe it is, or a polished kind of edge. That if we take that off, well, first we'll feel vulnerable and we'll realize that we're actually getting somewhere. But then also, yeah, it creates that level of authenticity that allows people to actually trust who you are. That you're not you can get hurt. I think that's part of it. Is like, as leaders need to be able to be in a position where they can get hurt because their
Mhm.
employees will respect them for that, right? And that's
Mhm.
where, um, and that's okay. It's yeah, it's not a
So where
thing to
did your
avoid.
lessons come from? So I don't know that you learned it from the animals. Maybe you did.
Yeah.
But where was that thing for you? Because a lot of times for us, it's like
Mm,
this. I mean, I'll give you an example, which is just a crazy frickin' example when I look back on it.
mm,
I was self-employed in my early 20s, and we had bookkeeping and tax service, and it was that we had 2 or 3 employees was all. It was my ex-husband and I.
mm,
It was the coming up 4th of July holiday, and it just happened to be during the week, right?
Mhm.
And my young brain was, why would people need the day off? The fireworks happen at night. I
Mhm.
swear to you.
Mhm.
So I did not. Now it's a big holiday. You're in Canada, but it's a big holiday in
Oh
the
yeah,
US.
yeah, I've been down there for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so literally, I didn't know what I didn't know, but we're there, and I've got people that we're working on 4th of July because it's during the week, and I'm feeling the tension. And then I finally realize about noon, this is nuts. I need to look at this differently, right? It's
Mhm.
not all about work and business and getting this stuff done. This is during the week. So at noon, finally, we let everyone go. It's like, okay, we're gonna call it. But can you imagine the poor experience of these employees? Oh my gosh. So I mean, but I look back at that, and I didn't know. I didn't have someone who could go, Michelle, what are you guys thinking? We're
Mhm.
self-employed. We're all about getting the work done. It's a day of the week. But that was a shift for me when I had to start opening up and realizing that business isn't just about business.
Mhm.
And that was one many stupid things that, I did way back when, as I was going
Mhm.
through. But where did your journey come from? Where were the ahas for you? Or did you
Yeah.
were always, oh my gosh, this is it. It's
I
wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always been kind of playful with like
Oh,
I've always been kind of, I guess, drawn to play in a way.
yeah.
Like it's funny as you're talking about that like 4th of July experience, like back in, was it 2007, I was working for a real estate company. We were launching a resort in Soyuz, BC, and Soyuz Lake goes across the border. And
Oh,
one of the things I remember most of work that summer was we did this Canada Day event. So because our Canada Day is July 1st,
yes.
and then we have a few days later July 4th. So what we did is they had this big fireworks show right in front of our presentation center, and we got all the clients that have bought in, we pre-sold these units into to come to it. We had family and friends there, and it was just such a fun time. And then 4 days later, we did the same thing. We just hopped on boats and went down across the border and watched the fireworks down the states. But yeah, that play, like that's the stuff that I don't know, it disarms people, right? Like if you can kind of humor, like but actually authentic humor. I know corporations, sometimes we try to create these events and
Yeah, no.
and stuff, and but sometimes you need people that can just recognize play when it comes up or when the opportunity is there. Like putting together that event was not something that would have been normally thought of, but you just when you get a group of people that are kind of like-minded that way, we come up with stuff. So yeah, for me, the aha is just kind of like I keep coming back to wanting to have fun.
Yeah.
And I did that for a while in banking, where I kind of just tried to blend in, and it was good, but I wasn't really happy doing it.
I
And then
can't see you doing banking. Literally, when you
it's
said that,
yeah,
I'm like, what? What?
I went through the whole gamut. I was, commercial, was a bank branch manager, then a private banker for several years. I did, it was probably about 5 or 6, almost 7 years. And
Would
and
not have picked that career path for you ever.
I know I was the flamingo
Yeah, I know. I
cowboy. Yeah.
know.
So um but it was good. It blessed our family, got us into our first home. It was great.
Yeah.
But when the opportunity came up in consulting, that's kind of where I kind of shifted gears. I had a friend that was like a classic Fortune 500 consultant, and I was curious about it. And then I took a course in consulting and came up with a niche and an offer, working with clients on LinkedIn, and paid some people to show me a lot of cool stuff, and got me to the level that I was. And so that shift, once I shifted into doing my own business and running it, it gave me a lot more leeway to kind of let my, but I was still, it took me again probably 5 years. When I met Kent, actually my partner, he was like the first
Yeah.
one, kind of like, this is cool, it's not something to hide, like bring it together. And he helped me with that kind of way of branding myself as well. And once you start connecting those dots, you're like, oh, that passion doesn't have to be here, and then the vocation over
Mhm.
here. If you can get them together, then you can really do something really fun, and
Mhm.
work becomes fun. It's no longer this thing you're trying to like hold out until the fun comes. It's
Yeah.
part. Yeah. Mhm.
What kind of, I'm curious, right? Because the work that you do and the fun aspect of it, and I'm smiling because there's a um, group of guys we got together, formed a partnership around AI consulting, and so we're working in that space. And we're still working on this one thing. So we mapped out, operating agreement and our values and mission and all that stuff. And one of our values we felt strongly about was fun. And so it is challenging sometimes, though, when you're stepping into a space that there's a learning curve and fast and furious stuff and everything. And I think
Mhm.
it's a really important reminder for us because we're going to mark the time no matter what. And if you mark the time and you're not fully enjoying every moment, I mean, it's like, it could all end today. Is
Mhm.
this the way you want it to be done, right? Are you going to have regrets? And so I think with that fun aspect of when you remember it, it doesn't mean that you don't work your butt off.
Mhm.
You're enjoying it while you're doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think even with that, like the next question is like, what's fun?
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone's version of fun is there's overlap for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look back in banking, like I was pretty fun, but I was still trying to put a cap on it. And I think sometimes with employees, are trying to figure out, well, who's the flamingo in the room, and how do we kind of give them permission to kind of like really make this fun as well. But that's also, it's like knowing your people a bit more, and but like being curious enough to kind of figure, okay, now who's the person in the room that's going to make this fun? Because
Yeah.
there's always one person there, but they might be putting a big cap on it, and you got to like, give them that space to kind of let it out. But
I
yeah,
love it. So what's a transformation for you that you've seen? Because you do consulting, you work with
yeah,
people.
yeah.
And I wonder sometimes if people understand what they sign up for
Mhm.
when they pull you in. So what is a without disclosing any whatever, but
Yeah,
what's a moment for you that you can think of that you walked away and gone, whoa, that was like completely different than what I thought it would be in the best
yeah.
possible way.
Yeah, well, it's funny, especially when it comes to like platforms like LinkedIn and stuff. And LinkedIn's kind of had this struggle for a long time too. Is like for the longest time, we're like, you have your Facebook, you have all those things where people show their lives, and then you have LinkedIn where it's all buttoned up and really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
And in the last several years, like LinkedIn's trying to get away from some of that, like being able to bring in the authenticity piece and the
Mhm.
fun and that part. And I see it with clients often when we first come into LinkedIn, we kind of come in this, we have this kind of like, oh, I can't share this, or I should share this, or and there's like this like back and forth. And I think the biggest aha is when you start to kind of give them the permission to share who they are, but you see them go through like that kind of imposter kind of feeling of like,
Mhm.
I don't know if people are going to like who I am, so maybe I should be this person, or they're trying to understand who it is. It's like, well, what do you think? What do you find interesting? What are the things that really get you excited? What are those weird things about yourself that you don't share with people, right? Like that sort of thing. And once you start to let that kind of come out with people on their and let them do that on their LinkedIn profiles, or the things that they share and post, it's really neat to see the response and what they preconceived with the response was with what the actual response was.
Mhm.
That's the aha moment for me, is like seeing like it wasn't what you thought it would be, right? It was
Yeah.
actually, the comments are okay. There's people aren't gonna
Yeah.
like,
You aren't
right?
basking you.
So
What do you think? And you didn't lose credibility. Yeah,
yeah, so
I think that stuff is cool. My brain is going um to what is so funny because I love building things, right? So I have a planer and a table saw and sawzalls and jackhammer. I got all the stuff, right? I
yeah,
love
yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know that that would fit in, but maybe like in the snake world for you, right?
It
Um,
does though. It's funny. You sound a lot like my wife. She loves building things out of
oh
wood.
my God. Yeah.
She like a couple of years ago, she took and built her first like it was kind of like just a table that went by our front door, like a narrow
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And she had to laminate stuff together, and it was her first table. And she
Oh, good
started
for
she started
her.
to broadcast that like through her Instagram. And it was interesting. So many people coming like, "Wow, I didn't know you could." She's like, "It was my first one." Like there was a lot of like acknowledgement to that, but also people realizing like, well, like you don't have to be, a professional to come up, put together a good piece of.
No.
And so like that totally comes out like because it's just kind of finding the dots that connect it, right? Because like you know, the work that you do and the fun that you do, they are connected. Like,
Hmm.
you know, the whole turn over the rock idea for me was, you know, talking to him about when I was a kid, I'd turn over rocks to see what was underneath. And then, you know, now as a grown adult, I do the same thing with my kids when we're on hikes to show them like we'll turn over a log or a rock. And Kent was like, you know, Tyson, you do the same thing now, except instead of rocks, it's people.
Hmm.
And it was just that connecting dots moment where I realized like that passion of mine does show up in all parts of my life, but
Hmm.
I just wasn't even aware of it or didn't recognize it for what it was. So like your love of woodwork, there's an alignment there. What why you're interested in woodwork and why you're interested in what you do. You know, podcasting
So
and everything else.
interesting when you say that, because here's what comes to mind. It's like my grandkids were up. They live in Southern California. I'm in Northern California, and so they were up in February. I had them for like 10 days. And so I was working, and then we'd go out back, and it's more than woodwork. It's like repurposing so that things are proud of
Mhm.
themselves again, whatever that may be. And my cousin had dropped off a bunch of brick, right, that had the concrete on it still and all that stuff. So we go out back with our safety glasses on, and everything, and we're literally breaking concrete off of bricks, stacking them. The kids got so excited. They're 5 and 8 year old boys, because now
Mhm.
they have hammers and they're smashing the concrete to pieces that came off the brick. And it was like, who needs Legoland? You know, we've got concrete and bricks. But it's that kind of stuff. It's like it doesn't need to end up in a landfill. It can be repurposed some other way, and all the stuff. But I see it's interesting that you say that, because when I think about what I see in the potential in things that have been left abandoned, or pieces of scraps or whatever that can be, repurposed into something else. It's the same thing with humans. It's like we're untapped potential for the most part, right? And when we go into coaching engagement or leadership development, whatever it may be, it's like, as long as there's a desire to be something better, improved version of who you are, right? Then anything's possible.
Mhm.
That's what I tell people. It's like I had one new client. She goes, "Well, I've got three things, but it's only a 3 month engagement because I also coach on Coach Hub platform." And I looked at her and I said, "You have to realize something. It's all possible. All of it. None of it's
Mhm.
off the table." And I think with that, when you step in with that, unlimited possibilities, and that we can do anything, because I've watched people shift in a nanosecond, and we have these preconceived notions that it's going to take all this time or not, right?
Mhm. Yeah, totally.
And that it's pretty cool stuff. So you're right. There is that
Mhm.
connection of just wanting to have people feel proud again,
Mhm.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah, when you can tell that story through your repurposing, like, you know, here's this piece of wood that has all this concrete stuck on it. The wood itself is still there, it's still whole. It's just a matter
Mhm.
of scraping that concrete off.
Yeah,
And that's something that you could turn into a whole, you know, alignment piece in terms of what you do with
yeah,
people, well, through
yeah.
whatever it is, coaching or podcasting or
Oh, it doesn't
yeah,
have to be spiders and
yeah,
snakes and
yeah,
bees.
totally. No, everyone has their own kind of thing that they really enjoy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of get to our like I'm kind of at the midlife stage too, where you like, you know, you start to get to that stage, you're like, well, what do I even like love to do? What you know, what I don't feel like I'm that interesting, or there's, you know, nothing, but there everyone has something interesting. I remember, you know, in our interviewing process with the ghostwriting, like whenever Kent would always say this is like, if you're finding someone boring, it's not their problem, it's yours as an interviewer.
Hmm.
Like people always have an interesting story. You just need to dig deeper and let your curiosity wander further. Because everyone does. It's been
I
kind of
love that. Let your curiosity wander further.
mhm,
I
mhm.
like that. That's a quotable thing. Let your
Yeah.
curiosity wander further. I do like that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like that. You have snakes. Are
Yeah.
you
Do
going
you
to
want to
show
see
me a
them?
snake? I want to see a snake.
Yeah, I've
I want
got
to see a
two
snake.
snakes. Yeah. Let
Okay.
me.
Are they big? Are they little?
You can be the judge of that. They're yeah, they're rather large. They're on the larger side, but they're not.
Okay. What kind?
They're,
So you're going to show me?
yeah,
Literally feel
so
like I'm in a
I've
Johnny
got
Carson show right
this
now.
is this one I'm pulling out here is an Australian olive python, and
Oh,
they're from
oh, wow.
well, Australia, of course, but they're actually they're like the second largest snake in Australia.
Oh my gosh,
So
how big
this
do they
is
get? Now, what's
uh
his or
it's
her?
him. Yeah, it's a him. So this is George.
Okay,
Um,
George.
I call him George because he's very curious.
Okay.
And
He does seem to be kind of flitting around. So how much
he's
does he
always
weigh?
moving.
How long is he and how big can he
Yeah,
get?
so he weighs now he's probably about 13 pounds.
Okay, that's not
He's
too
eight
bad.
and a half feet long.
Wow,
Yeah, they're
that's
kind of like a
long.
skinnier bodied. Yeah, like that's the whole body. They're like a
Wow.
and I'm like 6'5", so I'm
Okay.
bigger.
So you're
So
a short guy.
yeah, short guy. So if I hold him up, I can hold him a couple feet above my head.
Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
So do your
Yeah.
kids love George?
Yeah, so interesting story there. So I had the same kind of snake probably about 8 years ago. I got him
Yeah.
about 2 years ago, and we're living in Kelowna, in British Columbia, like 9 hours from here. I'm in Alberta now,
Yeah.
and I bought this snake, and he was only about 2.5 feet, 3 feet when I got him, and he grew maybe to about 4 or 5 feet. And when he was
Yeah.
about 4 feet, Gunner would hold him all the time. He'd put him around his neck, and I had no idea. I was like, "Yeah, he's great." And then one day he's like sniffing his nose. I'm like, "Oh, that's cute." And he goes and bites him right on the nose.
Oh
And I had
no.
to like ply him off, and I'm like, I just ruined my son from ever wanting to hold snakes
No
again.
kidding.
And and my wife's like, okay, we gotta sell him. Like he's bit. I'm like, dang, and it was like so distraught. We ended up selling him. And then when we moved to Alberta, where my wife is from here,
Yeah.
part of the deal is we found this house with a room in its own footings, like separate from the house, but in the house.
Yeah.
And I said, can this be a snake room? And so she's like, no, she's like, yeah, I'll
Please.
move out to your family if I can have a snake room. And so yeah, so we ended up getting another one. And he's actually
Wow.
turned out to be
So
really great.
what prompted the other snake to bite your son? Do you know
Yeah, so
anything
these
about that?
snakes,
Because I feel like there's something there.
yeah, well, when I first got him, he'd never bitten, so I was just going off of the fact he was great. He never struck at me. But what it was, I think, is when they're young, they're just really they'll like when I first got him, same thing. He would bite everything, but it wasn't aggressive bite. It was like I want to like he just thought
Curious.
it was curious. Just
Curious. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so what I did with him is I just handled him every day. So for 2 years when I first got him, I'm like, I just don't want him to get to 9 or 10 feet long and be a
Yeah.
bite,
Oh
aggressive.
yeah. No, that could be worse.
Yeah.
Well,
So
good to meet
I
you,
just
George. He's pretty
yeah,
freaking cool.
yeah, he's always moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, with these guys, it was just kind of conditioning them over and over again.
Yeah.
there's a thing in the reptile hobby they call like nothing's holy with snakes. So you just touch them all over, like their face, and everyone gets
Really? And they're okay with that?
yeah. Yeah, well, at first they'll kind of pull back and stuff, but then they start to get like used to it. So now, like, he'll still pull back, but before
Yeah.
when he touched me, kind of like really retract.
Right.
Whereas
Now
now I
he's
just
just
kind of like, oh, you're in
slowly
the way.
backing
Yeah,
out, going, okay, yeah,
yeah.
no.
And so when you do that, it gets them
His
more comfortable and
coloring's
stuff.
beautiful.
Yeah, if you get them outside, it's like this iridescent, like rainbowy
Yeah. Well, I
sheen
can
to
see
them.
some of the coloring, but I don't know if it's
Yeah.
reflecting off your shirt or not, but there's like a
Oh
purple
yeah.
tint to him.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
purpley blue. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's yeah, they're lots of fun. I'm glad that he got over his whole biting thing. But when they're younger, they're like that, and they call these when they're older, they're like gentle giants.
Okay.
Um,
How long do
it'd
they
be a good
live?
one. About 25, 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
you
he's
got
5 years old now,
okay.
so
You're gonna have him for
he's
a
still
while.
young. Yeah, and they get up to
Wow.
about 25 pounds, and he's 13 now. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah, he'll be a bit more of a wrestle.
Now, will he be longer too?
Yeah, well, not a ton longer. Like they get to like 10 feet on the upper end, usually nine
Wow.
and a half, 10 feet, and
So
he's
he's
eight and a
just
half
gonna
feet.
bulk out like
He'll
humans
bulk
do.
out. Yeah,
Yeah. So
he'll get
you 6'5", you grew and were probably skinny, and then you started
yeah,
filling out. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So he's yeah, he'll start to get more rounder. My other snake I have here, he's shorter. He's about 6.5, 7 feet, but a lot
Okay.
thicker. Probably about
Wow.
as thick as he will be when he gets older. Um,
Wow.
oh, he found something to hook onto.
A
So they but
little bit
yeah,
of
so
a
he's like
drawback.
he's always moving all the time. And so yeah, so I call him Curious George. He's always like sniffing things. Like if I take him in
Yeah.
the summer, I'll put him out on the grass. And I was like, at first I was like, I was watching him like, I don't want him to just take off. And
No.
he literally just like smell every blade of grass, just moving around slowly, like not
I
doing
have a dog
anything.
like that.
Right?
Our,
Yeah,
our walks are like sniff, sniff, and then we kind of stroll, sniff, sniff, sniff. I'm like, okay,
totally.
we're not walking. We're
Yeah.
like shuffle and then pause and sniff. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
if I
totally.
really
He just
want to
kind of
walk, I can't take her. Yeah,
yeah, totally. I
yeah,
can
we're
put him
not.
out on the grass, mow the lawn, and he just kind of slowly moves around. Like he's great.
That's
So
hilarious. I love it.
that's George. Let me
Is
grab him
he?
here before
He's gone now. Okay.
he's just right here. So I'll go grab. Let me grab Max here.
Okay, Max. Okay.
This is Max is our. He was my first snake. I got him back in 2015.
Really? So you've had him for 10 years?
Yeah, yeah, and he was 4 years old when I got him, so he's about 14 or
He's
15 now.
14 now. Wow.
And he's a lot different temperament. So he's the one that if I put him on my neck like this, he's the one I think on that video. So he'll
He'll
just
just
hang
stay.
out. He doesn't really go anywhere.
The design is crazy on his.
Yeah, it goes right through his eyes. You see that there?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he's just a lot more heavy bodied, like his
Rigid. I mean,
oh
there's
yeah, rigid
rigidity.
muscle. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what he
So
does.
what kind of snake is Max?
So he's a Dumeril's boa from Madagascar. They're
Wow.
actually endangered, but these breed really well in captivity. And so everything in Canada and the US that's Dumeril boas is usually
Wow.
captive bred. So yeah, they're just really plastic. So that's what got me into snakes. We had this get together of all these reptile lovers at a friend's place on his farm, and we're sitting outside, and my friend had two of these, and he put one on my lap, and it just sat there for like 15 minutes as we were talking. I'm like, I
Wow.
want. So yeah, he'll
Yeah.
sit the whole movie, just kind of hang out on your lap, just a lot
Wow.
more slower moving. In the wild, they look like dead leaves. They'll hide in the leaf litter,
Yeah.
and they'll wait for something. They're like an ambush predator, so they'll wait for something to come by and they'll grab it. Whereas George, on the other hand, if he sees a bird in the tree, he'll go up and hunt the bird until he gets it, kind of thing.
Okay.
So just different approach.
What a
So
trip.
yeah, so no, they're the you know what, in my book I talk about them in terms of like turning aggression into curiosity. So
Yes.
when I lived in a Soyuz, that like on the lake there, near the border, it's actually like a deserty like sage and sandbrush or sage
Oh, wow. Okay.
and sand and everything out there. So they've got rattlesnakes. And one night I was out on the beach, and there was this rattlesnake. Like I heard, it's funny because in the movies, you hear the rattle and you don't move. But like I was walking, I heard the rattle, and I jumped back. Like it
Oh,
was
yeah. No, yeah. It's like,
yeah, you don't even think
I
about.
had rattlesnakes where I used to live. And yeah, no,
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah, that was my first time seeing one. And but then I realized like he was just actually wanting to kind of get away. Like he just slowly slithered away and I found that with snakes in general, their first approach is to kind of coil and hiss and be aggressive.
to
But
back you off.
yeah, once they start moving though, then like their personality changes. Like even with George, when I'm taking him out, I get him moving and he goes from his like kind of aggressive mode into kind of curious mode. And yeah, it's the same with people sometimes too. If they're aggressive, if especially online, like if they're aggressive with you in their comments or whatever, if you let yourself be curious, like and that turns that aggression right around. I find often, not always, but often. Yeah.
Well, and what you're talking about, and in fact, I was just talking to a leader this morning about it, is to lead with curiosity, always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always. I mean, it's like, whatever's coming up, situations coming up, performance issues in play, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
Step in with curiosity
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know what you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when we're curious, we open up the space for people to step in and share what's really going on instead of coming with, because the opposite is just judgment. We
Yeah.
come in, we tell ourselves, exactly what's going on, how to fix it, what's happening. And it's like, do we? And for me, if we step in and assume, number one, I'll just go employee performance issues, right? Instead of telling someone you need to improve, you have to be doing, well, it's like, okay, duh. So let's assume for a moment that they know that they're doing poorly,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know they're doing poorly. And let's assume that they're doing everything in their power to not do poorly.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go in with curiosity, we're going to say something along the lines of, hey, help me understand what's getting in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can have a different conversation, right? But a lot of times we don't do that as leaders. We go and go, hey, you got to be on time. This is not okay. Okay, let's get curious. What's preventing you from getting here on time? Well, I have to drop my child off and da da da. Okay, great. So if we shifted your schedule to start 30 minutes later, oh my God, that would be amazing.
Hmm.
But you're right. It's just curiosity. I think that's the most important trait,
Yeah.
because with curiosity comes humility. With curiosity comes vulnerability. With curiosity comes creating the space, right? Because you don't have this intensity when you're curious.
Yeah. No, not at all. It's yeah, curiosity can disarm aggression, and then it can also lead to like a deeper relationship for
Yeah,
sure.
totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, it kind of
Uh,
goes back. Yeah, it's good way to look
I
at it.
um thank you for introducing Max and George,
You
Curious
bet.
George. I have
Yeah,
the
Max is a
monkey
lot more.
visual. My mom liked Curious George, the monkey, the yeah, that's
Yeah.
hilarious. So I have to ask you, Tyson, because you and I could chat for a really long time, and I could just listen to your stories for a really long time.
Yeah.
What are one or two things you want people to walk away with just around all the stuff that we chatted about today?
Yeah. Um, the thing that really stands out, and it's kind of the overall theme, is like, the moment we start to think like we understand, or I guess if we're feeling bored, or a person is boring,
Hmm.
or a position we're in is boring, it kind of goes back to that statement from my partner Kent, like, then we're not digging deep enough. We're not letting our curiosity wander further enough. If we think we understand a person, and that that's not interesting, then we haven't dug far enough with people.
Hmm.
It's the same in the interview process for hiring, like podcasting, with when you're having networking with people. All those things is like, if we're bored, it's on us. It's not on them. It's not on the not on the event or anything like that. It's we're not letting our curiosity take us far enough to really
Yeah.
understand who that person is, or whatever. So
I'm bobbleheading because I totally agree with that. And it's interesting because I haven't thought about it in that way.
mm,
And you're absolutely right. It's like, are we bored because we've already judged it and we believe it's not to be XYZ?
mm,
Um, or are we, and that's probably it. I don't know that you would get the boredom is going to settle any other way, right? And
mm,
when we get curious about why someone else doesn't think it's boring, or why
mm,
someone else finds it interesting, or it's almost like the snakes and everything else, right? That's not my
mm,
thing.
mm.
Curious about them, but it's not
Yeah.
my thing. It doesn't mean I'm going to go out and buy a snake. I'm not going to go out and buy a snake. But it
Totally.
doesn't stop me from being curious about why they're so interesting to you.
Hmm.
And I think you're right, is that maybe the thing that's the boredom piece of it is a signal for us to realize we don't know enough.
Hmm. Right. Or if the thing is boring, then like there's something we need to change to make it not boring too. Like
Hmm.
if it's just a task you just don't enjoy doing or whatever, those things happen, right? We get
Hmm.
things we like to do. But if we can introduce play, or let's say like if we can like become that, allow our playfulness to come out
Hmm.
in the things that we do, we can change that perspective, or we can change the thing that we do so it's not boring, right? It's
Hmm.
ways to
Well,
do it.
yeah, and when I think about work stuff that's not
Hmm.
our favorite thing to do, uh,
Hmm.
for me, it's going to be, this is a thing. It's going to allow me to do this other thing that I love doing so much, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's like this really cool stepping stone that you're like, hey, let me go after, like people say, eat the frog first, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So not that, it's only if you don't love frog, whatever.
Hmm.
But I think it's the same type of thing. Embrace, if it's not the thing that you love or you're excited about, is that thing going to lead you to something else that you are?
Hmm.
So again, back to Kent, dig deeper because
Yeah,
something in there is the thing that keeps you going forward. Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
You. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on sometime and we'll get exposed to more of your animals or
Yeah, of
bees.
course.
Here's bees.
We'll take you. We could take you out in the backyard and show you the bees next time.
There
Yeah.
you go. There you go. We're gonna have a traveling podcast. We're
Yeah.
gonna go on an adventure with Tyson. Thank you so much. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Michelle and Tyson. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe. Have a freaking awesome day. Thank you.